Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I am Barbara Danforth, and I serve as Vice President of the City Club's Board of Directors. And first, I would like to thank Mayor Frank Jackson, who is with us this afternoon. I want to thank the organizations and associations that support the Cleveland Metropolitan School Districts. I want to welcome all of our elected officials here today, but of equal importance, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us at this event today. An educated and prepared workforce is one of the most important factors in a growing economy. I am a senior consultant with the firm of Ratliff & Taylor, and in our executive search practice, we often hear senior executives lamenting about not being able to find qualified, entry-level workers, especially in the areas of IT and engineering. It is imperative for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to graduate significant numbers of well-educated students, especially in the STEM curricula, if our city and our region are to continue in an economic growth mode. I am pleased to introduce our speaker today. Eric Gordon is the Chief Executive Officer of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Today, Mr. Gordon presents his fifth State of the Schools Address, which will be followed by the traditional City Club of Cleveland question and answer period. At last year's State of the Schools Address, Mr. Gordon called 2013 and 2014 the year of disruption that yielded tangible results. A truly top-to-bottom overhaul of the entire Cleveland public school system. And while there has been measurable progress, there remains a long way to go. A recent report by the Cleveland Transformation Alliance noted an increase in graduation rate and a reduction in the number of students in failing schools. The report writers also said the overall picture is not improving fast enough to meet the goals of the Cleveland Plan. Specifically, the report noted that progress is undermined by the fact that the number of students attending the high-performing schools has declined in the past 2 years. In spite of this sobering news, there are tangible signs of progress, including 3 new and redesigned high schools. I drive by the new Cleveland School of the Arts every day, and it is truly a magnificent architectural accomplishment. I am so looking forward to being able to go inside and see what it looks like. Other signs of progress include innovative educational options, successful partnerships between the district and strong charter schools, and a strengthened teacher support and evaluation system. Today's large City Club audience serves as further evidence of the community's support for Mr. Gordon and his ongoing leadership efforts to make the vision embodied in the Cleveland Plan a reality. But if this plan is to succeed within the scheduled time frame, the district needs the full support of our corporate community, from companies large and small, and support from individuals who can volunteer time in tutoring students. The district's success means success for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, I present, on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, Eric Gordon, Chief Executive Officer of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District.
So you've heard most of my speech. Could we thank Barbara for her great remarks today? Thank you for that tremendous introduction. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today about CMSD's vision, goals, and progress. I'd like to start by extending a very special thank you to Dan Moulthrop and the City Club of Cleveland for hosting this event, my 5th State of the Schools as CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Please help me thank the City Club for making this an annual priority. I'd also like to acknowledge the sponsors who made it possible for the City Club to host this event here in the Renaissance Ballroom so that more of my fellow educators, our student scholars, and their families and caregivers could attend. They are listed in your program. If you'd please help me in thanking them as well. Before I begin my formal remarks, I'd like to recognize a number of people here today that have been instrumental in the progress that I will share with you. First, Mayor Frank G. Jackson, the city's strongest advocate of education in Cleveland. Thank you, Mayor Jackson, for your daily work, not only as our city's distinguished mayor, but also for your direct leadership as chair of the Cleveland Transformation Alliance and your tireless work in monitoring the continued execution of the Cleveland Plan. Thank you, Mayor Jackson. We can applaud him again. He deserves it. Thank you also to the 9 members of the Cleveland Board of Education for the vital role that each of you play in the success of our schools and the rising achievement of the students that we serve. I don't think we can underestimate the importance of a high-quality Board of Education, and ours is simply one of the best in the nation. Please help me thank the members of the Cleveland Board of Education for their leadership. 7 of our members are here today. They are Board Chair Denise Link and members Ann Bingham, Robert Hurd, Willetta Milam, Justin Monday, Stephanie Morales, and Dr. Lisa Thomas. My thanks to each of you. Thank you. Because it's the first day of our second week of school, most of our educators are at work today. But I ask those educators who are in attendance to stand in representation of our classroom teachers, building leaders, school employees, and district support staff. If all of our CMSD educators would stand and be recognized for your work with our scholars every day. I'm also so privileged to have a large number of our student scholars here today. If all of our scholars would please stand and be recognized, all of this is for you. Please stand and be recognized. I'd also like to acknowledge the senior leadership of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. A colleague of mine who knows CMSD well shared with me recently that he believes we have one of the best school leadership teams that Cleveland has seen in over 20 years, and I agree. So please help me recognize one of the best administrative teams in urban education as I ask my colleagues, the chiefs, deputy chiefs, and directors of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to stand and be acknowledged for your tireless work for Cleveland's kids. I'm so grateful to see so many of our partners here who helped shape the Cleveland Plan and who continue to support our work. The Greater Cleveland Partnership, the Cleveland Foundation, the George Gund Foundation, Breakthrough Charter Schools, and the Cleveland Teachers Union. Please help me thank them and other countless friends and supporters across the room and across our city who are key influencers in the state of our schools today. Thank you for all of your help. A very special thank you to my wife of 21 years, Dawn Gordon, whose constant support allows me the time and the opportunity to do this important work. I love you. Thank you. And finally, to the people of Cleveland, thank you for your extraordinary support of Issue 107 and of Issue 4 that provided not only the resources we need to achieve the goals of the Cleveland Plan, but the clear affirmation of the work we are doing to ensure all children in Cleveland are successful. Thank you to every single member, everyone in this audience and across our city who has supported our district and our Cleveland kids over the past several years. Please give us all one last round of applause. As I was reflecting over the past year, it occurred to me that today there is most likely one question on everyone's mind. Is it working? Is the Cleveland Plan working? Most of you already know about the unprecedented changes we've made throughout the district. You know from our changing culture in the last 3 years that this large urban public school system has undergone a complete top-to-bottom, inside-out overhaul of the way we operate. You know from our changing headlines that we have restored stability to a system that was in academic emergency, on the brink of bankruptcy, and destined for state takeover. But there's still this nagging question: is it working? When I've been asked about that question over the past year, I've always answered with a qualified yes. Yes, the Cleveland Plan is working, but it's hard to tell because the state of Ohio is implementing its third set of new achievement tests in the last 3 years. New tests with higher standards that will once again push down achievement scores statewide, at least initially. Yes, the Cleveland Plan is working, but unlike previous years when our report card results would be out for me to talk about, we won't have that data until at least January this year because of a delay in issuing state report cards. Yes, the Cleveland Plan is working, but Ohio doesn't rate its schools as effective or excellent anymore, so we aren't really able to compare where we are today from where we started 3 years ago. All of these answers are true, but none of them are truly satisfying. And then it came to me. Perhaps I've been answering the wrong question, or at least responding to the question too narrowly. You see, the way I've been answering the question, is it working, is similar to the way I rely on my car's GPS device. GPSs are certainly convenient, and they're usually reliable, but frankly, mine spends an awful lot of time recalculating. Oh, yours does too. In fact, just last weekend, after visiting a friend in Youngstown, my wife and I decided to pick a local restaurant using the points of interest tab of my car's GPS, only to find when the GPS guided us to the location, that's actually the location, the restaurant had been closed and torn down years ago. The truth is that, like our GPS devices, Ohio's state reporting system can be a convenient and reliable way of knowing whether our schools are improving. But right now, Ohio's system is recalculating. So if our accountability system is recalculating, then how can we determine if the Cleveland Plan is working? What did we do before we had GPS systems? Well, those of you who know me personally know that I love the Great Lakes, and I'm fascinated by the ships and the shipwrecks in the Great Lakes. In the days before GPS devices, or even well-developed navigation maps, the sailors of the Great Lakes navigated by following the stars. You may not know this, but there's one and only one star in the sky that never appears to move. It's called Polaris, or the North Star. And no matter what season it is, or what location you're in, all of the other stars appear to move around the North Star, even while that one star never moves. Finding the North Star isn't always easy, though. After all, which one of the billions of stars in the sky is the North Star? Sailors answered that question by looking for a set of guiding stars. In navigation, it's called finding the plow. We actually know the plow as the Big Dipper. You see, the Big Dipper is always in the same relative position compared to the North Star. And no matter where the Big Dipper is in the sky, the outsides of the dipper point directly to the North Star. That means, regardless of where the dipper is in the sky, its relationship to the North Star never changes, and it will always dependably point the way. So that's my answer. All I needed to do to show you that the Cleveland plan is working was to find the guiding stars that point to our North Star, and then I could answer that question, is it working? Our North Star was easy to identify. That's our mission. It's any school district's mission, really. High academic achievement for each of our scholars. But where were the guiding stars? Well, fortunately, these were relatively simple to find as well. For CMSD, we actually have 3 clusters of guiding stars that together can show us the way. The first cluster is those that support our mission of high academic achievement. The Cleveland Plan can only work if the organization is able to support it. There are 3 guiding stars in this cluster. The first is sufficient financial resources. If we liken the Cleveland Plan to a journey as a sea voyage, perhaps no fog has hampered our view more than Ohio's school funding system. It seems that every time the state of Ohio passes a new state budget, they introduce a new way to fund Ohio's schools. And every time, it seems like the result is less money for Cleveland's kids. This year's state budget reduced CMSD's funding by $13 million a year beginning next year. That budget cut is approximately 25% of the value of the levy voters passed in 2012 and will be asked to renew in 2016. But despite that continued challenge of school funding in our state and nation, CMSD is on track to keep our promise to the people of Cleveland that the 2012 levy will last 4 years while we invest, not disinvest, in our children. Yep, that's worth celebrating. Although the next year will be challenging financially, CMSD is well positioned to stay on the course of the Cleveland Plan investments that we've made as we approach the levy renewal. The second guiding star that points to our goal is quality learning environments for Cleveland's children. As you know, last year, Cleveland voters overwhelmingly approved Issue 4, enabling the district to construct 22 new schools and remodel 23 more, all in the next 5 years. These new and remodeled schools, together with the already completed construction and renovation of many other district facilities, including the brand new John Marshall High School, the new Max S. Hayes High School, and the new Cleveland School of the Arts, together will provide the community 88 new or refreshed school buildings that will serve the district's needs for the foreseeable future. And the third is human capital. After all, the Cleveland Plan is essentially a bet on people. The bet is that if we have the right people in our classrooms and leading our schools, and if those educators are given the resources they need and the autonomy to make decisions they know are best for their students, then we will achieve our mission of high academic achievement across the district. Here again, our guiding star is bright. Through our Teach Cleveland campaign, CMSD's principal and teacher teams have hired over 750 new teachers into our classrooms in just the last 3 years. And last year alone, 81% of CMSD's teachers were rated as skilled or accomplished on our new, rigorous teacher development and evaluation system. And 71% of those teachers had student achievement growth scores that met or exceeded the state of Ohio's learning expectations. With a firm foundation in place for our school system, quality teachers, adequate resources, and modernized 21st century learning environments to support our academic goals, we are positioned to support our academic mission. But these supports mean nothing without the public's trust in us and in our mission of high academic achievement. The Cleveland Plan simply cannot work if the people we serve don't trust in the work we're doing. Here again, I point to a second cluster of 3 guiding stars. The first is parent engagement. Research over the last 40 years has provided substantial evidence that strong parent engagement positively impacts a child's academic performance and social competence. 2 years ago, as part of the Cleveland Plan, we began measuring parent engagement in our district. At that time, just over 73% of our families were participating in meaningful family engagement activities like parent-teacher conferences, family literacy nights, IEP conferences, and other significant events. And that's a pretty good start. Many people would have guessed CMSD's parent engagement to be a lot lower than 73%. But last year, with increased effort to raise awareness of the critical role families and caregivers play in student success, that number increased from 73% to 80%. That means 8 out of 10 CMSD families participated in active, measurable, and meaningful ways in their child's education last year, a 6.8% increase in just 1 year. The second in this cluster is student enrollment. Cleveland, as you know, is one of the original cities of choice. In the 1990s, vouchers offered families the choice to attend any parochial school in the city. And in the charter movement of the 2000s, brought even more choices to Cleveland. And Cleveland's families chose. Since 2001, CMSD has lost 34,000 students at a rate of more than 2,000 students a year. This year, however, CMSD opened school not with 2,000 fewer students, but with 88 more students than the year before. While the increase is not staggering, it's just 88 kids, our current enrollment of 39,146 students far exceeds the 36,000 students the research firm FutureThink predicted we would and should have today, based on our past trends. The third in this cluster is public opinion. We are, after all, serving our city's most precious natural resource, our children. And in the end, the public must believe we can and are doing what's right for our kids. The passage of Issue 107 in 2012 clearly showed that Clevelanders were willing to give us a chance to fulfill the mission of the Cleveland Plan. Last November, the overwhelming support for Issue 4 showed that Clevelanders are still invested in our success at CMSD. But in March of 2015, when residents were asked to rate the quality of education at Cleveland's public schools, we got what is probably our best indicator of growing public trust. Last winter, CMSD commissioned an independent survey firm to better understand what residents of Cleveland think of the district today, and here's what we've learned. Among Cleveland residents surveyed, 73% rated CMSD schools as fair or better, up from just 66% 5 years ago. And 72% of those surveyed think the Cleveland schools are moving in the right direction. These are significant and positive changes for a system that was an academic emergency, near financial bankruptcy, and on the verge of state takeover just 5 years ago. So parent engagement is better, enrollment is growing, and public attitudes have improved. But to fully gauge whether the Cleveland Plan is working, we need to look to the final cluster of guiding stars, those that illuminate our academic mission itself. I'll point to 4 stars here. The first is early childhood education. During the past 2 decades, research confirming the importance of early learning and development has increased in volume and significance. Study after study shows that early childhood education delivers not only short-term academic gains, but lifelong benefits for students. Yet in 2013, only about 2,800 of the nearly 17,000 3- and 4-year-olds in our city were enrolled in a pre-K program known to be of high quality. That's only 16% of our kids. So in March of 2014, the Cleveland Early Childhood Compact was formed. You know this group by the name Pre for Cle. And in less than a year and a half, our combined efforts have increased access to quality preschool education by over 1,500 seats. That 52% increase in just 17 months led President Barack Obama to herald the Pre for Cle initiative at a White House summit on early childhood education last year. as one of the nation's best examples of bringing entire communities together on behalf of children. And today, over a quarter of our community's 3- and 4-year-olds are in high-quality early childhood programs in Cleveland. CMSD's performance on Ohio's third grade guarantee is another point of illumination. In the fall of 2013, the first year of Ohio's third grade reading guarantee, only 29% of CMSD's third graders were on track to pass the reading test that is now required for a student to be promoted to 4th grade. By the end of the year, with carefully differentiated instructional strategies, increased one-on-one tutoring, and targeted interventions for struggling readers, 85% of CMSD's third graders met the third grade reading guarantee and were qualified for promotion to the 4th grade. That's a 56-point gain, a 56-point gain. But last fall, we faced an even bigger challenge when the state of Ohio raised the score needed to pass the third grade reading test. We started last fall with only 26% of our third graders on track to pass. But as of last week, when we returned to school, 86% of our third graders had passed the test and were promoted to 4th grade. That's a 60-point gain. That's a 60-point gain, 4 points more than the previous year, despite the state raising the scores needed for our kids to pass. That means even when our kids started further behind on a harder test, CMSD made more progress last year on the third grade guarantee. And looking at our preliminary data for our incoming third graders, I'm confident that we will do even better in the year ahead. Another bright star is the number of CMSD families who have access to better performing schools and are choosing to enroll in those schools. This was clearly outlined in a recent report released by the Cleveland Transformation Alliance, showing that there are now over 10,500 students sitting in mid to high performing seats in Cleveland schools. That's a 19% increase since we began the Cleveland Plan journey 4 years ago. In that same period, CMSD has eliminated 10 failing schools, either by improving them, redesigning them, or closing them. And the Alliance's data shows that nearly 2,200 fewer students attend failing schools in the city, an 11% reduction. While this is good news, the Transformation Alliance's report also shows a decrease in the number of students accessing our very best performing schools. That means some of the city's best schools, both district and charter, wavered this year between high and mid-performing. An important reminder of how much more work needs to be done to maintain highest levels of performance in our top schools. The fourth and most significant star in this cluster is our graduation rate. Nowhere is there a clearer sign that we are on the right course to raise student achievement across this district than our graduation rate, which was just 52.2% when I became CEO 4 years ago. Since then, CMSD's graduation rate has increased by 12.1% and is a district record high since Ohio began recording cohort graduation rates in 1995. Our graduation rate today is higher than the graduation rates in Atlanta, Denver, Milwaukee, Washington, D.C., and several other major U.S. cities. And we expect continued growth when Ohio releases the 2013-14 data later this year, putting us on track not to just meet, but to exceed the Higher Education Compact's goal of a 71% graduation rate for the class of 2016-17. That's this year's juniors. I can't think of a better indication of how meaningful this gain is than when I heard CMSD's increased graduation rate again championed by the President of the United States this spring. When I was invited to the White House as part of a select group of school superintendents, the President discussed the positive impact that rising graduation rates in Cleveland and other urban communities has had in increasing the national graduation rate to its record high. If you look at what's going on in Washington, D.C., Fresno, or Cleveland, the President said, singling our district out specifically, these are school districts that, despite enormous challenges, have made real progress. Collectively, these guiding stars point toward our North Star, our mission, our goal of high academic achievement for every child in Cleveland. I'm not suggesting by any means that all of the stars are yet aligned. CMSD has not completed its mission, and it's clear we have a long way to go. Each of the stars I pointed to today can and must burn even more brightly if we're to ensure that every child takes advantage of the quality programs, educators, and options now available to them today. That's why we are aggressively tackling the very real challenge of student attendance this year. Third grade reading scores are up. More kids are attending better schools, and the end result is an increasing graduation rate. CMSD's teachers and other educators have done their part. We've changed the system, and we're getting better results. But far too many of our students are chronically absent. And the simple fact is, my teachers can't teach students who are not here. The evidence is clear. Cleveland students who miss more than 10 days of school are 9% more likely to fail the third grade reading guarantee. Our students who miss more than 10 days of school are likely to score 12 points lower on Ohio's reading exams than their peers, and 15 points lower than their classmates on Ohio's math exams. And 9th and 10th grade students who miss more than 10 days of school are 34% less likely to graduate high school. That's why this year we've kicked off our Get to School, You Can Make It student attendance campaign. The campaign roots effort to educate students and families, and in fact our whole community, the danger that just one day per month is designed to end failure by absence. And when we do, our guiding stars will shine even more brightly. You can show your support right now by posting a message to our student scholars and their families and caregivers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the hashtag #GetToSchoolCLE. Get the number 2 school CLE. Help all of our kids and families know that every one of us thinks it's important that our kids are in school. No single star that I pointed to today can alone answer the question, is the Cleveland Plan working? But like the Big Dipper, they do collectively point to higher academic achievement for our scholars, our North Star. I can think of no better way to conclude than by putting a face on the shining stars I pointed to in my address today. I'm so honored to have a number of guests who are living examples of our guiding stars with me today. I'm going to ask each of them to stand as I acknowledge them. Meet Rashi and Waddell Brooks and their daughter Sasha, who along with her siblings, they're standing over to your right and my left, along with her siblings, made a claim at our attendance campaign kickoff. Sasha has 100% perfect attendance from kindergarten through 12th grade. Sasha and Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, that's what we call a showstopper. Congratulations. Meet also Alexander Moore and his mother, Christine Turner. Where's Alexander? We got to have him stand up. Stand up, Alexander, and Mom. Alex is one of our Marion Sterling scholars who, as a third grader last year, achieved a 96-point growth from fall to spring on his Ohio Achievement Assessment and was promoted to the 4th grade. Congratulations, 4th grader. You got a day off in the first week of school. This is going to be hard to top. Meet Tremont teacher Kaya Abdur Rashid, Waterson Lake teacher Susan Smalley, and Bureau Dual Language Academy teacher Tanya Dunlap. And if they would please stand and be recognized. Oh, you got to stay up. Up, 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 up. There you go. These three teachers are among the many that earned the rating of accomplished in CMSD's rigorous teacher development and evaluation system this year. These are our single best accomplished teachers of the Cleveland schools. Kaya and Tanya also were rated on the state student growth measures, both of them receiving the rating of most effective in student growth. Congratulations to each of you. Meet Lydia Ford and her daughters Courtney and Casey Caesar. And if they would stand for just a moment. I can't see in the light, so I hope they're standing. Oh, there we are, right over here in the middle of the room. Thank you. So, Ms. Ford and her daughters are enrollment number 87 and 88 of our increased enrollment after choosing to return to the CMSD school district after having researched and actively chosen quality schools for their high school journey. Courtney now attends the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, and Casey is a student at the new Cleveland School of the Arts this year. Welcome home. Meet Santina Crawford, whose son Jeremiah attended a charter school last year as well. Where is Santina? Ms. Crawford? Very good, right here toward the front. Ms. Crawford and her son Jeremiah attended a charter school last year before she worked with her son to thoughtfully explore all of the high school options across the city. They found the perfect fit, they say. Today, Jeremiah is thrilled to be a student at MC Squared STEM High School. So thrilled, he's become one of the strongest advocates for this quality school choice in Cleveland. Welcome home. Jeremiah is sitting really close to the microphone we use for questions, so jump up and give me the hard ones. The hardest questions always come from students. He gave me the thumbs up. Max Hayes principal Kelly Whitman and Chelsea Cook, principal of the new John Marshall School of Information Technology, are both here as well, if they would stand and be recognized. These two principals left their jobs in the state of Indiana and Texas respectively, to be part of the Cleveland Plan. Principal Cook summed it up best: why talented educators across the country are coming to CMSD. I saw what Cleveland was trying to do, and I wanted to be part of it, she said. If not as a principal, then as a teacher or anything in between. Welcome to Cleveland, and thank you for leading our scholars. Patrick Henry's school site coordinator, Cynthia Shelby, and the school's dean of engagement, Michael Jester, if you would stand and be recognized. These two, thank you. These two individuals represent a model of the kinds of above and beyond efforts taking place at schools across the district, where educators are engaging whole communities in their schools' academic achievement and parent engagement strategies. Thank you for your work on behalf of our kids. Finally, meet two new teachers, Brianna Guevara and Josh Brosman. They're both here today as well. Thank you. These two represent among the 325 new teachers hired into the Cleveland Metropolitan School District this year. At a time when other cities across our nation have teacher shortages, Josh and Brianna have joined 325 teachers to make sure that we are fully staffed and ready with the best and brightest among the field of education. Welcome to Cleveland. Brianna said she was drawn to CMSD for its diversity and for the opportunity to serve students with backgrounds similar to hers. Josh, who chose to teach in one of our investment schools, came to Cleveland with a desire to make a difference in the city's most struggling schools. Thank you again to every one of those shining stars for putting a face on the results we are seeing today. Ladies and gentlemen, achievement is up in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. More kids are in better seats. Fewer kids are in poorest seats. Graduation rates are increasing. Trust is returning. And we have the people and the resources we need to continue the journey. The Cleveland Plan is working. Thank you for joining me today and allowing me to share our progress on the Cleveland Plan. And thank you for your continued belief in and support of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I look forward to your questions. Thank you again for coming today. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
And Eric, on behalf of this audience, I thank you for your excellent leadership of this district. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are enjoying the 2015 State of the Schools Address featuring Cleveland Metropolitan School District CEO Eric Gordon. We will return to our speaker momentarily for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome all of you here and those joining us by way of radio broadcast and web stream provided by our primary media partner, 90.3 WCPN, WVIZ PBS, and 104.9 WCLV Idea Stream. Television, radio, and web production and distribution is made possible by Cleveland State University. We thank our presenting sponsor, PNC, and our supporting sponsor, the Albert B. and Audrey G. Ratner Family Foundation, for making today's address possible. Today's forum is the Berenice Carrigan Smith Forum on Education, made possible by a generous gift from the Smith family. We thank you for your support. Today, we welcome guests at tables sponsored by several corporations and community organizations. Please refer to your printed program for a complete list, and we thank all of you for your support. Now, we would like to return to Mr. Gordon for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Microphone stands are located on either side of the room. Please form a line by the microphone closest to you if you have a question. And may we have the first question, please?
Good afternoon. First, I want to say I appreciate the visuals during your presentation. That was wonderful.
I hope they worked. I couldn't see them.
The attendance campaign, I think, is excellent. I taught 40 years in the Cleveland School District, and there were so many legitimate reasons why students were absent. I remember a student saying that they didn't have a washer and dryer and his clothes weren't dry the next morning, so he wasn't able to come to school. We used to have paraprofessionals who served as parent liaisons years ago, and they were laid off. So my question is, what system do you have in place for parents to be able to communicate their needs so that it takes more than a phone call asking young people to come to school? Sometimes parents really need help. Parents and guardians need help, and they're just not able to get their young people to school. So what system do you have in place? What support system to take care of that?
Sure, thank you. So the attendance campaign is so much more than yard signs and bus signs. That's the visible part. That's the part people see. And I would say first that our schools have been trying to tackle this at the school level on their own for years. That alone is not going to move it because it's a system problem. Many of the things that you mentioned, uniforms, transportation, food, and other reasons why families don't engage, and also, frankly, a culture of a day a month isn't a big deal. So the first part is the schools themselves and all the things they've already been doing. And I want to recognize out loud that our schools have been trying really hard for a long time. The second is visibly calling the question. We have this problem, and here's the impact of it. But the third is the part of redesigning the district support, using very much the strategies we know have moved people to vote for Issue 107 and Issue 4, where we actually are working to have teams in the community solving those problems, working with our community wraparound partners, working with partners like the P16 Third Federal Slavic Village Program or the Promise Neighborhood Program, working with Metro Health to get those school care there, and actually using the data to drive us into the neighborhoods where we're seeing the needs the most. So going and actually using data to door knock and find out what exactly the problems are and connecting families to those resources. So the third part, which is probably least visible, Ms. Johnson, is actually the district's realigned effort behind the scenes to target resources to the families we identify needing them. So thank you again for the question.
Okay. What is going to be our vision of success without repressing the students' feelings, thoughts, and activities, leading them to happiness and making sure that they know it's not about what job gives you the most money?
I'm sorry, I only heard part of your question. Do you
I'll
mind?
repeat it. It's okay. Excuse me. What is going to be our vision of success without repressing the students' feelings, thoughts, and activities, leading them to happiness and making sure they know it is not about what job gives you the most money?
Thank you. What's your name and where do you go to school?
Demetrius Carter. I actually was an alumni of Max Hayes here in CMSD, but now I go to Tri-C. Beforehand, I went to Hiram College, but I decided to come back home.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming home. So I talked a lot about a journey, and I actually have a sign in my office, and it's really important to me. I think what we have done right by you and by all of our other scholars when you get to choose your own journey. So I have a friend who is a bartender. He has a master's degree in literature, but he wants to tend bar. That's what he wants to do, and he's happy, and that's what I want for him. The difference is that his school system, just like this school system, gave him all of the education he needed to be able to make that choice instead of being damned to it. My goal is to make sure that you can choose whatever you want to do that makes you happy and that you have the education beneath you to make that choice. It's as simple as that to me. So congratulations for Tri-C.
Good afternoon. I'm Kadir McJunkins from Wake Park School, and I have a question. I've noticed that in school systems there are no longer classes like cooking, workshop, and home economics. Are you or anybody else working to bring those classes back into the school system?
So I think it's a great question, and I think we have to think about the right purpose for programs like that. So people often use the example of woodshop. We used to have woodshop. Woodshop is not going to be a career pathway of anybody's future. It is a hobby, and it's a wonderful hobby, and we can teach it as a hobby. Construction trades is a future. And so I think we have to sort out the differences. I think there is high value, particularly in middle grades, and we know the best middle grade programs in the country, high value for getting to do things like cook and sew and build and construct and scrapbook and take cars apart and all of these other things. And if we approach it as a club and activity, a series of things that kids can do for enjoyment and to learn about themselves and learn what they like, that we should spend a lot of money in. But to put programs back that were designed to be career pathways of the past, instead of investing in our academies, which are career programs of the future, that's where we have to draw the difference. So I would strongly support lots of clubs and activities on all kinds of resources, opportunities for you and your classmates, as long as they were designed to help you explore the world and not designed to somehow carve a pathway that no longer exists in our country. Thank you for your question. I told you student questions are always the hardest. Great question.
When can all CMSD schools have foreign language classes like Spanish?
So why can't all of our schools have that? Was that the question?
Yeah.
So I would say that there should come a day when all of our schools do have that. I don't think it should be thought of as a can't. It is something we don't have in all of our schools yet, particularly our K-8 schools. And the irony is that you learn language so much more easily at your age than my age. So we should actually be teaching multiple languages at your age, not my age. But like that, and like the arts, and like activities that our young lady from Wade Park mentioned, it's not a can't. It's how do we take a system that has eliminated those things over a period of years and reinvest in them? And it's going to take time, but it can be done and it should be done. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Bowerman, and I work for City Year Cleveland. I served the past 2 years at East Tech High School as a AmeriCorps member with City Year, and we focus heavily on attendance, and our new 60 AmeriCorps members just started in 7 different schools. And I was wondering what advice you would give them when they're making attendance calls and our students are saying that they're concerned about violence in their communities or violence in their schools, and how can we advocate for them to still come to school but feel safe?
Yeah, community violence is a big issue for us, and it's a big issue for all urban communities. I would start by letting them know some really good news. The serious safety measures, the serious safety issues that happen in the Cleveland schools have dropped by 42% in the last several years. 42%. Our schools are safe places to be. Now, does that mean that they don't have fights? No. Things happen, they're schools. They happen in every school in the country. But as far as safe places to be, they are. And our students have told us this through our Conditions for Learning survey and through our Student Advisory Committee that used to rank safety as the #1 priority, and now it's dropped off of the top 3. We also have to pay attention to safe pathways to school, and we do have safe walking routes, and actually are surveying parents right now to make them better. There is strength in numbers, and so working with City Year and other partners to make sure that kids who really don't feel safe come together to school, ride the bus together, ride with young near peers like you. There are meaningful, tangible things we can do to counter the effects of what's going on in our community that has nothing to do with our kids. So those are some tips that I would offer to get started. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nigel Smith from Whitney Young, and right there. All right. My name is Nigel Smith from Whitney Young, and I've heard a lot of rumors, but we just wanted to know what were the building plans for Whitney Young.
I didn't hear the second half.
The building plans for Whitney Young.
Okay.
But what are they?
It's hard to hear up here. I'm sorry. So, in the John F. Kennedy Whitney Young community, we're going to build a new high school campus on the park that currently holds Charles Eliot School, which is Douglas Park. And we're going to build a new K-8 building to replace Charles Eliot and the younger kids at Whitney Young on the Whitney Young site. We're redesigning the high school programming for Whitney Young and John F. Kennedy at the new campus, and then we're designing a new K-8 experience using the existing Whitney Young site. That's the plans for those sites.
Okay,
Thank you. It's a good thing I knew that one. That could have been a tough question.
Hi, my name is Tavon Flagg, and I'm here representing Martin Luther King High School. And my question is, well, I actually got kind of 2 questions in one. I just want to know, like, what is happening, like, with the budgeting of CMSD? Because, like, our school, and I see that a lot of our schools don't really have wrestling teams, football teams, or even our school got a swimming pool, and I don't even see why we don't have a swim team. I've tried to raise questions around the building about fixing it up and using that as some credit hours for our graduation requirements, and the main thing I hear is liability issues from CMSD. And then another thing I was thinking, like, maybe we could make up something to where students can just go to school, and if they're not interested in doing any sports, they could also have a workout room where they could at least be doing something to keep athletics on their game.
Sure, I think those are great questions. And one of the things that's happened as we've gotten really small really quickly, because we've lost about half of our size, is that schools like yours got very small. And so you have Martin Luther King that used to have over 1,000 students in it, that now is down to under 400 students. And when you lose the economy of scale, you lose the ability to do multiple programs. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have access to programs. We have an intramural league, and you should make sure we know how to get that for you. Lincoln West is an example of a school that did open their weight room for strength training for kids who are just interested. So there's ways we can do some of those things. I don't know about the credit recovery or the service credit for the pool, but I'd love to talk to you about that. That's student engagement at its very best. So I think you should continue to advocate about what we can do with the resources we have, while we have more smaller academies like you have now compared to the old large comprehensive high schools, which presented different ways to tackle that problem. And I'm going to try to make sure somebody that's a staff member near you grabs you so that I can follow up on this service credit and put you to work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Trevisha Fox, representing Whitney Young High School, and my question is, I've gotten many suggestions to ask this question. So my question is, what are you guys gonna do about the heating and cooling processes for the schools? Because honestly, in the winter, it's very harsh and crucial, especially on Monday mornings when they just turn the heat back on. And also right now when we have the fans in the school, those fans, it barely cools my bedroom. It's not working.
So you just made the case of why we need to build you a new Whitney Young. We have a lot of facilities that are outdated and don't serve our needs anymore as well as they need to, and that's exactly why voters just passed the ability to build 22 new schools and to remodel and update some others. About 22 of our schools across the city do not have air conditioning. Last week was an incredibly hot week. And so you just painted the perfect picture of why we needed the support of the community to finish updating our facilities, is because of the problems that you addressed. Thank you for your question.
Okay, how you doing? I'm Deshaun McIntyre from MLK. I was just wondering, how do you see the Cleveland, or the school district of Cleveland 5 years from now?
Oh, how do I see us in 5 years from now? That's a great question. I think it would go back to what I shared earlier, that I think we're on a journey, and I think that we are getting faster and faster at improving a system that for a long time had been stuck. We had really low performance. We, year after year, had to lay off teachers. You remember in middle school when we had large numbers of teachers that at the end of the year were told they couldn't come back because we didn't have a job for them. We were actually being prepared to be taken over by the state of Ohio. So we've changed a lot. Now those changes have to really ramp up and go more quickly. What I would see in 5 years is some of the things you and your classmates have talked about. If we continue to make great progress, we're going to see more clubs, more activities, more arts, more sports, better buildings. All of those things that you and your classmates are asking about, we should see those getting better and better and better 5 years from now. Just like they're better today than they were 4 years ago. They're not good enough. We got a long way to go. And so I would urge us to stay the course and keep getting the gains we're getting so that we can give you everything we want for you. Thanks for your question. Thank you.
Oh, hi. I'm Christy from Lincoln West High School. I'm a senior. And
congratulations.
Graduating this year is going to be amazing. But since our school is an investment school, I was wondering what you believe the future would be for our investment schools and investment schools all around CMSD.
Well, what I would tell you is you're a senior at Lincoln West, so you remember when you became an investment school 2 years ago in 10th grade. It is a fundamentally different school today than it was 2 years ago. Different and much, much better. The investment is working. I was in your school last week when we were opening schools. 2 years ago, I personally spent time chasing your peers around the hallways, telling them to go to class.
Yes, I remember.
Last week, yes, I remember too. Last week, I took pictures and posted the empty hallways because in my 40 minutes of walking through the building, there was not a single student out of class. And when I walked into rooms, your classrooms were engaged, your hallways weren't. That's the investment school at work. And so we need to accelerate it, and we need to, like we've done in other places around the city, find the specialized program that meets your interests and invest deeply in them so that you get a great experience that when you graduate and go on to college, you're ready to roll. But we couldn't do that when we couldn't even get our kids to go to class. You and your peers and your educators have fundamentally changed Lincoln West, and you should be very proud of it. It's an investment working. Congratulations.
I would say it has absolutely changed drastically since I was a freshman. It has drastically changed for the better.
Well, that's because of you and your classmates and your teachers. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone.
Today at the City Club, we have been enjoying the 2015 State of the Schools address with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District CEO, Eric Gordon. Thank you, Mr. Gordon, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.